Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League, as Suj would normally say. My name is James. Suj isn't with us. And of course, this is our final podcast of our EFL week, and the one I think many of you have been waiting for throughout the week as we preview Gaffr, the fantasy game for the EFL Championship. And I've got two guests on who might, in quote, know what they're talking about. Firstly, let me introduce you to Jamie Roberts. How are you, Jamie?
I'm good, James. I think might was probably the best description for it. I can't promise anything, but I'll try.
I said, Jamie, you ready? He said, no. And let me introduce you to Angus McPhail. How are you, Angus?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yes, good. Thank you, my friend. Firstly, guys, want to get to know you two a little bit. Jamie, who do you support for those who don't know?
For my sins, unfortunately, I'm a Stoke fan. So obviously the last few years haven't been that pleasant, but I am actually looking forward to going back next Saturday. I can't wait for a 0-0 draw. I've missed it. So yeah, for my sins, I am a Stoke fan.
Reading at home opening day. You got quite a tough start, actually, having a look, I'd say.
Thing with fixtures is every game's quite difficult in the Championship. I know a lot of people say, but it is actually true. So it's one of them. If we can get a good run going at the beginning, we might be okay. If not, then we'll be trying to claw our way back up the table.
Hopes for the season, just briefly?
I'll take a comfortable mid-table.
And best Stoke assets, Powell, right?
Nick Powell, 100%.
Yes! I'm on it. Was he 8?
8 million now, yeah.
Mate, I've been researching like a beaver. I should say at this point, I should say at this point, we're pre-recording this on Tuesday the 27th, just in case something happens in the 3 days between us recording and something's going out and bound to from the 24 clubs that we don't mention. And Angus, who's your team?
So I have, funnily enough, doing a championship pod, I have 2 teams I support, neither of which are in the championship. So,
and they are?
I'm a Rangers fan and an Arsenal fan.
Okay. The Arsenal bit, I presume, like, are you here to wind me up, or how does someone who follows a team in the Premier League and a team in Scotland end up on an EFL Fantasy podcast?
So I think I followed the Championship for a while. The first game I ever went to watch it in England was actually, funnily enough, given your pod that's gone out today, was a Wimbledon game at Selhurst Park. And so followed them, and I went to school near Crystal Palace, so I followed them. My brother and some of my best mates are Fulham fans, so followed them quite a lot in the Championship. And then, so when it came about last year that Jamie needed a new co-host, I sort of put my hand up to go on.
So proper Arsenal fan from South London.
Yeah.
That's where they should be from, right? Jamie, for those on YouTube, you might have noticed his camera's going to dip in and out all the time, mate. He don't know what he's doing. Jamie, how do you run your own podcast? Let's talk about the pod a little bit.
What do you mean? How do I run it?
Yeah, with the state of your technology, I mean.
I don't know, honestly. One thing that is what I need to do is get a new camera, because I'm just going off the camera on the laptop at the moment, and I have no idea why it keeps going off. But running it, I don't know. I just wing it every week and hope that it improves every week. Honestly, that is it.
Am I right in saying originally you started it by yourself? Is that right?
I did, yeah. It came across. How did it come across? I messaged you asking you if you were going to cover anything for Gaffy when I found out about the game. You said, you're too busy. You wouldn't be able to put enough effort into it. So that was like fair enough. So I just thought, fuck it. I'm going to do it. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. My first podcast I recorded, it took me about 3 hours to edit it because I was going through every single bit, and I was like, this isn't fun. How do people do this?
Just leave it. Don't bother, mate.
Yeah. And now I've just got to the point now where I just wing it every week. I just hope that the audio is okay, and I'll just throw it out there.
So how did you come to be involved in this, Angus?
So Rob, Jamie's original co-host, had to take a step back from doing the pod. His partner had a baby, and so
congratulations, Rob.
He didn't have the time to do the pod, and so I'd been listening to the pod. I think there was a WhatsApp group as well, and Jamie was sort of asking is there anyone that can come on the pod? Because initially it was Rob could do some of them, but not all of them. And so I volunteered a few times. And then when sort of Rob said basically he wasn't coming back, it became a permanent thing.
I may just add that me and Angus are just 2/3 of the podcast.
Yes.
We have got Dan on, who's going to be joining us this season. He's a Luton fan. His championship knowledge is unbelievable.
Why do I want to say Dan Ashby?
Yeah, that's him. He's going to be doing the main pod with us on a Sunday, and then I'll just be doing it with a guest on a Thursday for the extra time pod. But yeah, Dan, he's quite involved behind the scenes, to Angus, but yeah. It's normally like me and Angus do quite a lot of the other stuff because we've got nothing better to do it late at night than just talk shit about the championship, really.
So you're basically going to do a Sunday night, which is what, like a review pod of what happens over the weekend, and then a Thursday is a preview for the next game week?
The main one on a Sunday is going to be like a review, so that's going to be an hour long, no matter what, because sometimes we went way too long last year, so we won't keep it to under an hour. So we'll review everything there. The Thursday one is just going to be anything we haven't been able to discuss on the main pod. So, for example, if Swansea have got a big game coming up that weekend, I'll get Tom come on, or it could be anybody really, just key talking points, really, just what we haven't been able to cover.
I guess so. Obviously, of course, in the championship, you get a lot of midweek fixtures as well, don't you? So the Thursday pods would be useful for that as well. So, I mean, what, game week 3 is a midweek, game week 7 is a midweek, game week 10, game week 13. You're not short of midweek fixtures, are you? So, and it does keep this game constantly flowing, actually, from a fantasy perspective, as well as, I mean, the competitive nature of the championship is well established and well known anyway. I want to ask in the first instance, and you might not know the answer to this question, why is the game called Gaffer?
I don't know that question. I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry. I have no idea. Maybe you're the gaffer of a team.
I don't know why it's called Gaffer either. And it's Gaffer with an E missing before the R, but it is for the Championship Fantasy. And that's going to be what a lot of our focus is on this particular podcast. Mm-hmm. What's different, if I come to you first, Angus, what's particularly different about this game to FPL? In terms of the scoring nature of the game, what stands out to you? Because there are different nuances in the scoring between the two games.
I feel like in general with Gaffr, it ends up being higher scoring. I think it helps. I mean, obviously one that everyone talks about is that the clean sheets are broken up into each half. So it's 2 for each half, which often ends up with defenders being able to score more points. And then I guess the other big difference I can think of is that the bonus system in Gaffer goes up to 4 rather than the 3 in FPL. So there's the extra point available at each point for the best players in the game.
Defense is quite interesting because you're right in saying obviously it's 4 points for a clean sheet in FPL. In Gaffer, it's broken down to you get 2 points if you get a clean sheet and a half. And I didn't realise this till I had a little look earlier today. It's also broken down if you play 30 minutes. Within that half. So in theory, a fullback could come on after 55 minutes and he could get you 3 points, couldn't he?
Yeah.
In theory, if they don't concede in those 35 minutes, bang, you're there.
Yeah.
3 points. But in this particular game, you're not looking for players who are only going to score you 3 points, as I'm sure we'll come on to. What else stands out for yourself, Jamie, in the scoring in terms of how different it is?
A big one is penalties. So if a player wins a penalty, he gets points for that. And then if he stepped up to take it and they scored it, he'd also get the points for scoring the penalty as well. So I'm just on the rules now in front of me. Penalty scored is 3 points. Penalty won is also 3 points, unless you're a midfielder and they get 4. So if a midfielder wins a penalty, takes a penalty and scores it, he can get 7 points just there.
It's mad.
Yeah, I kind of like that one. There was one last year. Some of them I didn't like. Forwards lost more points for getting a yellow card, which was frustrating as an Ivan Toney owner. Well, the whole game was, but if you captained him and they lose getting -2, you're getting -4, and that was quite frustrating. But they've got rid of that. It's just a lot more high scoring than FPL. So when you have a bad week, it doesn't actually feel that bad. Where in FPL, if you get in 30 to 40 points, you feel, oh, this is shit, and you've got to wait another week. With this, you have a bad week on 60, maybe 70, and then you go again in midweek. So it's a good turnaround.
Yeah, I think the obvious scoring changes to people are those: the actual winning of the penalty. So whether it's converted or not, it's 3 points. Unless it's a midfielder, it's 4 points. For an assist, midfielders also get an additional point. So they get 4 points for an assist as opposed to 3 points for any other player. Angus, you obviously went through what happens with clean sheets, which I quite like. I think it's a cute way of playing the game. You said that with the yellow cards changed, so that's just back to a standard -1 for yellow card. Otherwise, scoring's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Pretty similar. And in terms of one of the reasons why the scoring's also higher is 4 players get bonus, right?
Yeah, they do.
Your top bonus points player gets 4 points. And obviously it works kind of similar to FPL, but there's 4 players definitely in the bonus rather than a definite of 3 players. And the way they do it, it's based off, it's quite simplistic, the way they award the points that tallies up in terms of who gets the bonus. It feels, just looking at it, it's really simplistic in the rules and actually a little bit easier to understand than FPL. What sort of players from your experience last year, guys, are regularly racking up the bonus in this game?
Olise was one once Angus. He comes straight to mind.
Really useful now, Jamie. Thanks, mate. He's gone.
Yeah.
Harry Wilson was incredible on the bonus points.
Who's just signed for Fulham. He was obviously at Cardiff. And what was the reason then that he was regularly hitting bonus? Because sometimes he was hitting bonus with no attacking returns
so I think
anything.
There are things that score really well, things like successful dribbles, which obviously he was sort of had a lot of during a game. Things like successful crosses, chance creation. So those things obviously all played well into someone like Harry Wilson. So that was part of the reason that someone like him would do really well on the bonus.
I'm just going to read through these. So you get, if you think of this the same as BPS, +1 if your team wins, +1 for 4 defensive actions. I take it that's clearances, tackles, a combination of things. Every 4 defensive
blocks,
actions. 1 key pass, a +1, a shot on target, +1, 2 successful dribbles, +1, goal, +2, assist, +2, penalty 1, +2, penalty save, +3, yellow card -2, red card -5, penalty miss -3, match clean sheet in the halves, +1, and 4 saves for a goalkeeper, +1. That's basically how they work out their BPS/bonus system. It's no more complicated than that. So that's quite easy to, the way I just read it out probably sounds like a lot, but actually you can look at it in one screenshot.
Yeah.
It's quite simplistic to understand, actually. Angus, I want to talk to you about the boosts.
Yeah.
Which are the chips, if you will. This works very differently to FPL. And I feel like I might just go and put on a cup of tea and disappear for half hour while you talk, mate.
I'll join you for this part.
So obviously they have 6 boosts, but they break up the season into chunks. So I think the first set of boosts are you have to play 3 of 6 between game week 1 and game week 15. And it will be the same thing for the next set of games and the final set of games. So I think it breaks up into 15, 15, and 16. The boosts aren't necessarily the same every time. Some of them will be, if it's the same as last season, some of them will be, some of them will change. And I think the good thing with that is, particularly when we're talking about FPL, it's like, when do you play your triple captain? When do you play your bench boost? On this, not only do you have to work out sort of the best weeks, the best opportunities to play your chip, but people aren't necessarily going to be on the same strategy, even though people will end up playing completely different boosts. I think, for example, me and Jamie were talking at one point about last season. He played the overhaul, which is the wild card, in, I think, all 3 sets of boosts. I didn't play it once, and we didn't actually finish that far apart. So it shows as well that you can go with completely different strategies and still succeed in the game.
Yeah, it also means it's different to say FPL. So we might do an FPL strategy pod now, and we can say, well, it looks like game week 36 is probably going to be the biggest double game week. That's irrelevant. You've got to you either use or lose 3 chips in the first 15 game weeks. You don't, from a strategy perspective, you don't need to think any further than that. No. So you get 6 chips, which we're going to talk through what they are at the moment. but you can only use 3 of them. You choose whichever 3 you want. As Angus has said, that then resets, and between game week 16 and 30, you'll get another 6 chips. They won't necessarily be the same. They don't tell us, do they? They just drop, and you get what you're given, and how you use them, you have to work out from yourself. So talk us through these chips then, Angus, and what your thoughts are a little bit in terms of using them.
So, I mean, the chips themselves, there is away days, which is every player in your team that is away gets double points.
That's mad.
So obviously the potential for points there is massive. I think it's, of the 6, it's the highest upside chip, the highest upside boost. Obviously, because you can get sort of effectively, particularly if we're comparing it to FPL, you can get essentially 11 captains in one game day. There's Park the Bus, which is all of your defenders score double. It should be said with that one that means there's no captaincy if you play that one. There's Goal Fest, which is, I think, every goal that's scored by your team, including your bench players, is an extra 5 points. There is Jeepers Keepers. Need to double check the rules on that one. So I think they've changed it slightly. So it's 2 points per clean sheet in each half, an extra 2 points, 3 points for every save, and 10 points for every for a penalty save. And that's to both keepers, your starting keeper and your bench keeper.
So that the 2 points per clean sheet per half, isn't that how it is anyway?
So it's an extra 2. So your keeper would essentially get 4 per half.
You sure?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I mean, 3 points per save is mad anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be less high-powered this season because obviously a lot of people got to use it in a triple game week last season.
Yeah, was it Rotherham and someone else, I think?
Yeah. So it became insane last season where people were getting sort of over 100 points from their goalkeepers. Then there's multi-captain. So in Gaffer, you have your captain scores double, and you have your vice captain who scores 1.5 times their points. For multi-captain,
they get 2. So the way Gaffer works is you get double points for your captain as per usual. Yeah. Your vice captain scores 1.5 times. So you effectively got almost 2 captains every week, and your emergency captain that steps in if neither of those play. What would be your FPL vice captain is your emergency captain, the third player basically in Gaffer, if neither your captain or your vice captain play. The multi-captain, all 3 of those players effectively become your captain.
Yeah. And the last one is the overhaul, which is essentially a wild card.
It's a wild card. So I want to give you an example and tell me how bad you think this is. So if I use the overhaul in game week 6 as an example to set up for an away day, I look at some fixtures in game week. Wrong week. Let's look at game week 5 is better, actually. Let's overhaul in game week 4. Game week 5, I've got West Brom at Peterborough, Bournemouth at Hull, Sheffield United at Luton. So if I overhauled into treble of them, which is going to be nearer the transfer window, set up to have sort of 11 for an away day to give me 11 captains basically in game week 5. Is that a fair sort of strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think overhauling into something like away days is always good because I think particularly of the first set of boosts, that's the one you really want to maximize because it has the highest upside. You can easily be up at around, I mean, it happened last season. People scored more than 200 points on away days. So it is potentially worth it. I mean, for me, it's a tough balance, particularly when you're talking about game week 5, because I'd almost be looking at sort of bearing that in mind in terms of those teams when I'm picking at the start. But you don't want to overlook the first 4 game weeks, just focusing on game week 5. But I think particularly with some of those, the advantage with something like game week 5 is some of those teams that you're talking about are teams that we're going to likely have players from anyway, particularly the likes of West Brom. So it does help. Like I generally, particularly based on it working for me last season, it might not work this year. I generally try and avoid using the overhaul because I want to sort of, at least theoretically, use the boost to maximize the number of points I get, which overhaul can help with, but I'd sort of rather use 3 that score higher points. But it certainly can work in terms of overhauling into something like that.
So my experience from using chips, I'm pretty sure, like Jamie, I'm pretty sure I probably used 2 or 3 overhauls last year, and I would have used it to set up for something.
Yeah,
is basically how I would have used it. Exactly that. Set up for an away days, set up for a bench boost ahead of a double, something like that. Was that your thinking last year, Jamie? Is that why you were using the overhaul each time, do you think?
The first one, it was because obviously we were all new to the game. We'd never played it before. I got excited and played Goalfest, I think, in game week 1.
Good lad.
Because I had Kiefer Moore, Pookie, and Naki Wells, who I was big on, and that went well.
It not.
They had good fixtures in game week 1, and I thought, I could maximise this now. And it went okay. It didn't get really good. But then what I find quite difficult is picking a team from the beginning, because you don't know who's going to play. You don't know what surprises are going to be. I mean, I don't really look at the fixtures in this game because the league's so brutal. So I kind of use the overall to get myself out of trouble if I've messed up at the start. If I've picked too many risky players who aren't getting the minutes I thought they would have, or if I've backed a team to do well and they haven't started well, I can then, like Naki Wells is a perfect example. I was really excited about him last season, and Bristol City were absolutely terrible. So I kind of got myself out of trouble with mine. And like Angus said at the beginning, I don't think there's any right or wrong way. Me and Angus play very differently, but then finished quite close. So this season, I don't want to use it straight away. Hopefully I get off to a good start without it, but I might have to rescue myself.
Interesting. But just slightly off topic, where did you both finish in Gaffr last year overall?
27th.
15th.
How many players?
7,000, something
Yeah,
like
that
that.
sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah.
I peaked at about 15th. I think I might have even touched 10th mid-game week at one point. I mean, I finished about 60th or 70th in the end. There'll obviously be more players this year as well, I presume.
Hopefully, yeah.
But shows we're not all idiots. The game can be won. I mean, I did a podcast on Patreon last year talking about the fact I was 15th and didn't have a clue what I was doing.
I remember that.
I should implement that in FPL a little bit more. And I have to, I want to do this publicly, Jamie, because I have a confession to make. Jamie is the only person I've ever asked for any sort of fantasy advice of anything. And it was about 10 minutes before a Gaffer deadline when
I remember
in prepping for Rotherham's treble game week. And Jamie absolutely nailed the right 3 Rotherham assets for me. Well done, mate.
Yeah, it's probably the only thing I did do right last year.
But there are aspects of that game that come in. What happened last year because of COVID, we're probably unlikely to land with like a treble game week, for example. Again, I mean, Rotherham had treble, double, single, double, or something like that in the last 4 or 5 game weeks last year. So you could have a few of them in, even though they were shit, because you knew you had a couple of chances. Plus, they were cheap as well. Yeah. One thing that I think all the listeners who are thinking of playing for the first time should be really cautious of. It sounds obvious, but don't forget it. The transfer window.
Yeah.
The transfer window is not going to close in this game until we get to game week 6. Game week 5 is on the 27th of August. And does the EFL deadline extend a little bit? Because I know that's happened in the past as well. Do you guys know?
No, it ends on the end of August, but
it's the same. I
think they're allowed to have loans after that. I think I'm not 100% sure.
If you look, for example, the 2 biggest priced midfielders in the game at the moment, Mateus Pereira 11 million and Arnat Danjuma 10 million. You guys won't have heard it yet, but yesterday's podcast with Neil Grover, Gemma, and Harris and Eno basically saying, them 2 players are not going to be playing for us. They're going.
Yeah,
but there's no point in having them.
Yeah,
does mean you're going in with the most expensive midfielder would be Millwall's Jed Wallace, who I had for a lot last year. But a lot of people probably gone, what? Most expensive midfielder and Millwall player. Is he worth it?
Angus, you're probably best answer this because I can't. I think he's shit. But he does pick up bonus because...
He does. He did it right for me.
Millwall don't have anything going forward. So, Angus, you can answer this one because I'm biased.
So, The funny story is we did a podcast at the end of the season, an awards pot for the championship and for Gaffer, and one of the things we had was flop of the season, and I was all set to say Jed Wallace, and then I discovered that he was like the second or third highest scoring midfielder in the game, and so I am not really sure how he accumulates all his points, but he does very well. But the problem with him, particularly at 10 million, is you're not really going to captain him very often.
Spot on. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, I had that a lot last year.
And it feels like a lot of money to have invested in a guy that you're never really going to captain. Like, even if you look at Millwall and they're playing like Coventry, you're still going to look at it and say, am I really going to captain a Millwall player?
No.
Sorry, Donna.
This year's a bit different though in Angus, because last year you could afford to have Wallace in there with a Buendia or Ismail Assar, where this year you can't. I wouldn't want to be doing it with the budget this year because of all the players have had a price increase. So I think it'll be really difficult to, I say justify having him in there, but like you just said, he was like the second highest scoring midfielder. So
what happened last year? We start coming on to kind of some players and stuff. I think one of the reasons I had a really good start was I didn't start with Naki Wells. And I know certainly in our Patreon community, it felt like I was the only person who was not starting with him. It was like 6 million at Bristol City or something. It looked like a giveaway, but I went elsewhere. And one of the players I went with was Adam Armstrong of Blackburn. And I'm pretty sure I started with Even Tony and pretty much had him all season and never moved him as well. And Lucas Zhao at Reading was another player who developed, and like that three and Kiefer Moore later on at Cardiff as well. They weren't big prices, right? So you could afford to have your Wallaces, etc. in midfielder. I think you're right, Jay. Fitting that in this year is probably going to be a little bit more difficult. Who's stood out for you, Angus, price-wise, that you thought, right, they're definitely in, have got to be in at that price? Because I can't find a single player where I'm like, yeah, he's definitely in. Not one.
There weren't many. I think there were a couple of players that I had sort of decided were going to be in my team, so it wasn't necessarily about the price. Like, I decided that, for example, Mitrovic was going to be in my team. The closest thing in terms of a pricing thing was seeing the price of the West Brom wingbacks. I think it's 6 million when the most expensive defender is Connor Roberts at 7.5. I looked at the West Brom wingbacks and thought that's great value. But there weren't too many that sort of jumped out to me and was like, yeah, at that price they've got to be in.
About yourself, Jamie?
Exactly the same. I'm just
I'm looking for the first time now.
Yeah. I set a draft up on release day, which was basically just pick all the players in, get it in, done. It's all done. I'm waiting for the listeners. We're doing 3 preview pods. Cover 8 teams in each pod next week. So I'm kind of waiting for that because we're kind of like the knockoff Planet FPL. So I've got people in a WhatsApp group who support different clubs from each team in the league, and they're going to give us their advice on best assets, best cheap players, stuff like that. Likely formation, likely lineups, and I'm kind of going to do my shortlist from that. But looking through the prices, there's nobody who I think, he's brilliant. So like, nobody would have thought about Elise last year at 4.5 million. Nobody, Lucas Zhao. There was no way I thought he'd have scored that many goals last season. He was awful before. So it's kind of just try and get a balance for me at the beginning and try to play a bit safe.
Okay. Can I give a tip and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong or not here?
Yeah.
Don't be frightened to spend money in the defence.
Yeah, I've got lots of my money spent in my defence on my draft.
I don't think it's unreasonable to be spending 29, 30 million on your back five.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't finish a draft, but because I knew I was coming on here tonight, I was sitting on my lunch break at work and just going through some players. And out of my 5 defenders, the cheapest, I had one 4.5, one 5, and the rest of them were 6, and a 6.5. Because they're that good and they just get your points, so it's worth it.
Yeah, we discussed on that Clash of Correspondence yesterday, for example, with Gemma and Harrison about exactly what you said. Furlong and Townsend,
at
6 million could be the this season equivalent of what Bidwell and Roberts were for Swansea last year were incredible. Roberts is the most expensive defender at 7.5. Bidwell's 7. One of the problems we've got right now is at time of recording, we don't even know who Swansea's bloody manager is, so that doesn't particularly help us. But I know there's a few people who are on an avoid Swansea idea at the moment. What's your thoughts on the Swans?
I won't have any of them in my team because Conor Roberts is out until September, I believe, anyway.
Oh, is he? Right.
He had an operation after the Euros, so that rules him out. But like you said, they're managerless at time of recording. Their loan players have gone. So Woodman's gone back to Newcastle. Gehi's now at Palace.
Hurahan.
Ayu's left permanently to go in the Middle East somewhere. So I look at Matt Grimes is linked with, is it Fulham, Angus?
Fulham.
He's their rock in the midfield. So I look around that team and I think they are going to struggle. So, yeah, avoid them for me.
There's one that's interesting for me. 8.5, though. Jamal Lowe in midfield. Worth a shout, do you think?
Potentially, if you have if you're quite happy with your team and you want to take a punt or two, someone like Jamal Lowe could be good. The theory is that he'll be playing out of position again. He spent a lot of last season playing in a front two. Obviously, the assumption at the moment is that it's going to be John Terry at Swansea. Don't know. We don't even really know what John Terry wants to do system-wise, or if it's someone else. What system they're going to be in? Is Jamal Lowe even going to be the sort of striker? They've brought in a young Dutch guy from, I want to say PSV, who might be the striker if they only play one up front. But I think Jamal Lowe potentially is probably the best option to go for from Swansea.
14 goals in 44. It's not bad for an 8.5 million midfielder in this game. It sounds, if you're saying he's going to potentially play up front again. Just briefly, what's your thoughts on that, on Steve Cooper leaving Swansea, guys? Because, I mean, that's only happened over the last week or so.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where, particularly once it started dripping out that he hadn't been the happiest there. They weren't happy with the fact that he'd sort of actively applied for, I think, 4 jobs over the summer.
Good lad. He wants a pay rise, doesn't he?
I
hope he applied for the Tottenham job. No one else did.
he applied for, he applied for Palace. He applied for Fulham. I think there was one other one in the Premier League, and I think he applied for the Bournemouth job as well.
I think it was a long time coming, though, because he built that team last year with loans with the hope of going up. Yeah. And if they'd gone up, it might have been a bit different. But I don't think their American owners are prepared to invest in the club like they promised, are they? And I think there must have been something behind the scenes where they've had a disagreement regarding recruitment or something like that. So I'm not surprised that he's gone. It's a shame. He's done well there. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the Premier League once someone gets sacked.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, we said that on one of the Patreon pod we did on Monday. Actually, we were saying that, he'll be right in the queue if Norwich broke up with Daniel Farker for whatever reason or something like that. He'd probably be right at the front of the queue to get a lower end Premier League job. Actually, let's talk goalkeepers briefly, guys. What's your thoughts on some of the keepers in the game? I mean, we've lost certainly one expensive one in Asmir Begovic, who's 6 million, who's gone to Everton. We could lose Aaron Ramsdale and Sam Johnston as well. This is what I'm saying. These guys are bad picks, basically.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. Because you could lose them at any point.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at in terms of keepers? Who's stood out? Because, I mean, the one for me probably is the Spurs boy that's gone into Fulham. I don't rate him, but Paolo Gazzaniga at 6 million, I think, is an interesting shout, actually.
Yeah, which is great because the closest thing I had to a nailed player was Marek Rodak. So the Gazzaniga signing is great for me. But yeah, I think Fulham obviously is one that jumps out. I think particularly if you work your way down the value, I think there are a couple, particularly at 5. Dieng at QPR stands out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I had him for a bit last year when they had a double. He didn't do too badly, actually.
Yeah.
And whichever goalkeeper ends up in goal for Stoke, that could be a good option. And then I guess Coventry's keepers are both 4.0 as well, which is the the big sort of opportunity.
Oh, okay. So we've got to have one of them then, because that was going to be one of my follow-up questions. Who's the 4.0 goalkeepers? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
So could they? The problem is though, could they buy one? I guess they could.
They could do. Yeah. I think that's one I'm not too sure about with Coventry. That's something definitely for the preview pods, because I'm going to be all over that. Whichever one's starting is 100% going to be in my team. It'll be ridiculous not to, wouldn't it, at 4 million, even if you're just going to have them on your bench. But, one of them at 4 million, then I'll be looking at 5.5, I think. I don't think I'll go 6.5 on Burkowski.
There's going to be some people listening who are going to go, well, why not just get Wilson and Moore, who are the two Coventry keepers?
I've seen
probably not a team that's going to blow you where you're going to suddenly need 4 players from Coventry. Is that a strategy? But then that kind of flips on what we said about, actually, don't worry, spend the money defensively, like if you can. But that's got to be an idea, isn't it? To go.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few on that, and I think it is an option. I personally, particularly with some of the other things where you can benefit from the goalkeepers, I would personally like a slightly better keeper as sort of insurance, particularly because then if Coventry are shit and conceding goals, you're going to have to bring another keeper in or accept that, you're just punting the keeper spot. So I think I'd personally still like a little bit extra coverage in that area.
Just looking at their fixtures, Jay, sorry. They don't play any of the top 6 in the betting till they play Fulham in game week 11. So they haven't got a bad run, actually, at all.
But that was their downfall last year. They went quite unnoticed quite a lot because they weren't as bad as other teams like Birmingham for a long period, Sheffield Wednesday. And that seems to have been their problem last year. So I know you're only spending 8 million, and I can see why people would do it. But I'm like Angus, I need a bit more security, really, because I can't see many clean sheets there.
The other thing, obviously, to be cautious, if you go down that sort of route and you want to use, which chip is it, Angus, the bench boost, basically?
Keepers.
Or Jeepers Keepers, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That's going to rule you out of that.
Yeah.
So you just have to be conscious of that, or you're going to have to overhaul to get to there, or make at least one goalkeeper transfer change, which you probably don't generally want to be doing that. And again, I agree with you, Angus. That's why this game throws up really different strategy ideas. I mean, just literally looking at Coventry's defence in the game as well. I can't say I've spent a lot of time looking at them. You got Hyam, who's 5 million, Rose and Dabo's 4.5, and then you've got another 6 players of 4.0.
Yeah.
Well, as it stands, one of them's got to play as well, surely, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of it with them, I guess, particularly because of you've got those defenders, which all aren't necessarily as good as, picking the right ones. But I guess if you, particularly with the way it's going, if you leave it a couple of weeks, sort of see how it shakes out, then you've probably got a playing 4.0 defender there.
Just while we're on Coventry, anything else stand out from them? I know Martin Waghorn, who was hero for Derby on final day, has gone there. He's priced at 7 million up front. Was that interest at all?
Not at 7.
No.
Not at 7.
Sounds too expensive.
Yeah.
We had Matt Godden's there at 5.5. We were quite excited for him last year because was he 5 million last year, Angus?
Yes.
And he'd gone into with a good record from League One. He got hampered by injury, so that never happened. But he's worth a watch. I like Hamer, 5.5. He's a good player, decent price. But I think Hoaz, if I was going to choose one Coventry player to have, he's by far the best player, isn't he?
Yeah.
And what price is it?
He's 5 million Hoaz, and I'd have to get his assistance to football.
It's in midfielder.
Yeah, he's the most creative. Him and Hamer are creative midfielders. They create chances. So I'll be honest, I haven't seen nothing of Coventry in pre-season either, to get me excited or make me think these are going to do really bad. That's why I'm excited about the preview pods, just to get a bit of knowledge on some of the teams we haven't really noticed.
And so who do you think will play in goal for Stoke, Joe?
If you'd asked me after last Tuesday when I went crew, I'd have said Adam Davies. But Basic played the next game, which I expected, against Villa. But Basic's playing against Wigan tonight in a much changed lineup. So it is a 50-50. I personally hope it's Davies, but I have an inkling it might be Basic now.
That's so helpful. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah,
I tell you what,
which
in
you
that
don't have one,
case, since I know you were at the Brit, if we can call it that, and you beat Villa 2-0, how did Emi Buendia play? I know it's off topic.
I didn't go to the Villa game. I was at the
shit.
I went to the Crew game on the Tuesday.
That's no use, is it?
Yeah.
You're meant to be scouting Emi Buendia for us, mate.
No, apparently we were very good and we're now promotion candidates, but I wouldn't believe that.
Yeah, listen, I remember when Darren Bent scored 13 in pre-season. We beat Roma 5-0, Dortmund 3-0, Celtic 3-0, Norwich 5-1, and then we started with 2 points from 8 games. I don't fucking worry about pre-season, honestly. The other keeper I wanted to mention, and feel free to throw some names in if you want, guys. We spoke about him a bit yesterday, Mark Travers at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Who, if he gets the shirt, he's really interesting because he's only 5 million. But we think Bournemouth are probably going to try and buy a keeper now.
Yeah,
so,
they were about to bring in Freddie Woodman.
That's correct, yeah.
And then all the Newcastle keepers decided to get injured or COVID. So that didn't happen. I think it was mainly the Dubravka injury that stopped that. But if Dubravka isn't out for that long, then that move could easily still happen.
There's a month for it to come.
A wasted spot.
To come back around. I mean, actually, when we recorded with Neil, our Bournemouth correspondent, he mentioned Bailey Peacock Farrell, and in the couple of hours between recording with him and recording with you, he's gone to Sheffield Wednesday in League One. So, but I think it does emphasise that Bournemouth are probably looking for a goalkeeper. So that's the opposite conundrum to the Ramsdale and Johnston problem. You've got to be conscious of that a little bit. If you're looking at a squad and you're thinking, well, they look a bit threadbare, they've only got one forward or something, they're probably going to invest in that position, be it a loan from a Premier League, nicking off a League One, League Two club or something. And that adds a really interesting dynamic. That's another reason I think you probably don't want to use that, talking about, say, away days for game week 5, and it was just an example to throw out there. You overhaul in game week 4, use the away days in game week 5, and the transfer window's still open. You could walk into such a clusterfuck for game week 6, basically, if a few players move on whatnots. I like Gazaniga. He's the one I've got in there at the moment. Are there any obvious fours other than what we mentioned with the Coventry combination? You think someone might be getting some minutes?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just sort of thinking about the other two I'd mentioned at 5 that caught my eye were Collins at Barnsley, did well last season. Obviously, they're a bit more of an unknown with the sort of manager leaving and everything. And Bentley at Bristol City.
I was about to say Bentley.
I think, obviously, Nigel Pearson came in partway through last season. They've got sort of full season under him. The hope and thought would be that they'll be much better defensively under him, and Bentley is definitely the number one there. So I think in this one, if you're going to bring in a 4, it's the Coventry guys, and then I'd look somewhere like a 5 or a 5.5, ideally, maybe a 6 for someone like Gazaniga, but 5 or 5.5 for your other keeper.
See, I'm the opposite. I wouldn't go 6 million. If I was going to go 6, I'd just rather pay the 0.5 and have Bielkowski. Millwall are very good at home, normally defensively, normally gets you their half clean sheets done to Angus.
Yeah.
But when I was looking through it, I think Smithy's at 5.5, and who else was I looking at 5.5? Etheridge. I think Birmingham could be really interesting this year, but I'd again go to 5 million. And I did look at Travers and I thought, this is a bit of a cheat code. But he started last season and got dropped after Klanger, didn't he? So
yeah,
Dieng at 5 is a big favourite of mine. And then the Stoke keeper who starts, they'd be my choices.
All right, okay. Defensively, guys, are there any obvious 4.0s to start with that have stood out? Oh, go on, Angus.
So there's Dimitri, I think it's Dimitri Mitchell at Blackpool. Okay. Yes, you have to buy a Blackpool player, but I think he's been playing, he's a 4.0 defender who's been playing on the wing for them in pre-season.
Oh, that's sexy.
I think he's even got like a couple of goals in pre-season as well, but he's sort of the real one there is Mitchell at Blackpool.
Is he been categorised incorrectly, basically?
I think it's just one of those where even seeing a couple of people that they just think he's a defender that they've decided to play on the wing. So it's maybe not a great compliment of their wingers that they had, but
we have to be careful with that though. To let Ryan Aït-Nouri's been playing on the wing for Wolves in pre-season. No one really thinks that's going to last. Is this a case of that, or is he actually a winger?
FPL Tangerine. You can find him on Twitter. He's obviously a Blackpool fan. He's recommended him, and I don't think he'd recommend him if he didn't think he was going to actually play when the season starts. So, I'm going to be all over that at 4 million. He can sit for on a bench for all I care.
Do you want to leave him out though if he's playing on the wing, mate?
Probably. I don't know. This is what I had this headache with Elise.
How many points does a defender get for a goal? It's not 6, is
5.
it?
Every position gets 5 for a goal.
So you don't get more points for a defender scoring than a forward scoring, right?
No.
Yeah, I think he'd end up sitting on the bench probably, wouldn't he? Especially when we're saying about potentially investing.
And I know he's playing on the wing, but realistically, how many goals or assists is he going to get at Blackpool? So I'd use him just to free the budget up myself.
I've got a Blackpool player in my draft at the moment, but we'll come back to that. It's not. I wish I'd looked clever and it was this fella, but it's obviously not. Angus, any others, or I feel like we should just drop it there and go, that's your 4.0 guy.
Yeah, that's the only 4.0, and whoever ends up starting at Coventry.
Right. Okay. Again, Coventry defensively, but you're probably more likely to go with the keeper in that particular case. Okay. Any 4.5s that have stood out?
Oh, very good question.
I had George Friend for a little bit last year, Jay, and I know he was in and out the team a bit, but you said you fancy Birmingham might do better this year.
I had him. Birmingham started off really well defensively last year, and then it just went. I don't know what happened with Cranky. Friend, I can't imagine him starting too many games this season. Could you, Angus? No, they've brought Sanderson in on loan from Wolves, haven't they? He'll probably drop into centre-back.
I know Bradley Parker quite rates him, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's 4.5.
Yeah, so he's there at centre-back. Colin will be there at right-back, I'd imagine. And then just let me get Birmingham's team up in front of me. Dean, I forgot about Dean. He's 5.5. I can't see Friend getting any minutes, especially with his age.
We can leave that one then. Anything for you at that price value, Angus?
I think there's a few good options there. I mean, obviously, a lot of people had Lee Wallace last season because he was like absurdly cheap. The odds are he's still going to play again. He's 4.5. I think that it's difficult because no one wants to say, oh yeah, Preston, but I think almost all the Preston defenders are 4.5 and they were quite good defensively down the stretch last season.
They've got a decent opening 4 as well, Preston.
Yeah. So I think the one that I had actually late last season was Sepp Vandenberg, who's on loan from Liverpool and has gone back again. But it looks like a guy, Ola Sunday, that they've signed is going to play right wing back for them.
From Rotherham?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know they signed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, he'll be decent.
Breaking news to Jamie shows how engaged he is.
Jay, you know I said, why is this guy on your EFL podcast? I think I know now.
Yeah, Angus carries me, to be fair.
Yeah. There's not too many others. I mean...
Well, it sounds like you're probably... Do you guys believe there's an optimal formation in this team? This game? Do
you want at least 4 at the back?
That's my point.
Yeah, 4 at the back.
Yeah. It's
maybe 5.
4-3-3, really, or 4-4-2, I think.
4-3-3, or I know the most popular one last year, I think, was either 4-3-3 or 5-2-3.
Wow.
Yeah. Just have Buendia and like an Elise or a Nick
just sold
Powell.
everyone this Blackpool 4.0 defender, guys. I agree.
I think at least 4 at the back, yeah. And so that's part of why I think you can actually invest quite a lot in that area.
Okay. There's a couple of 5s I want to get your opinion of. FPL Terrier, Huddersfield correspondent, was quite keen on Pippa.
Yeah.
At 5.0. Said he's got him in at the moment. Any thoughts on him and Huddersfield assets?
Him and Toffolo, I think. I haven't seen much of Huddersfield, but all indications are those two from the fullback positions get really high for them. So Pippa at 5 or Toffolo at 5.5 could both be quite good options.
Well, Cobran, who's in charge, he comes out of Bielsa's school, basically. He was on the coaching staff at Leeds with him. So they're actually not too bad to watch, so I hear, actually.
He's a mad bastard on the sideline. He's brilliant to watch.
Cobran, is he the same as Bielsa?
Oh, yeah, he's everywhere.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he's real good. To be fair, Huddersfield played that Cardiff game. That was a really good game to watch. But they just shit still. They're like, Toffolo did well. Toffolo did do well last year.
He was popular in this. What is he? 5'5", is he this year?
Yes. Yeah. So that puts me off now.
Yeah.
I won't be going near him yet.
There's two other 5.0 players I wanted to ask you about personally. One is De Silva at Bristol City.
Yeah, see with
are you on that? Are you, Jay?
All over him, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a young boy who was left back at in the Chelsea youth teams, right?
Yeah.
I promise you, I watched that kid when he was 16, 17, and I thought he would take the world over, mate.
Yeah.
I actually thought when I first saw him, that kid would be better than Ashley Cole, honestly.
Yeah.
5 million. Bristol City were utter toss last year, but FPL Beery, who's a Bristol City fan, he's under the impression that they'll be a lot better under Pearson this year. From pre-season, he's played left wing back as well. So it looks like they're getting to a back 5. Obviously, they've got Callas there. Baker, was he at Chelsea as well, Baker?
Yeah. Nathan Baker, yeah.
So
he played in Holland. Loads of them went out and played for Vitesse. He was one of them, I think.
So I think De Silva, I do want to have him, but it's a bit of a gamble. So I'm kind of contradicting myself where I say I'm going to play safe in game week 1 and see how we go. But then I really want to put De Silva in, but we don't know what we're going to get from Bristol City yet.
And the other one I wanted to ask you about is this guy who plays for Cardiff. I ain't going to pronounce his name.
Perry and G.
Because there's too many letters in it. I think I'll get it wrong. Is that how you pronounce it? NG?
Yeah.
That's blinding. He's got 2 letters. Imagine that, having that on the back of your shirt. G. Tell me about this guy, because I've seen him. I've seen a few people using the hashtag and he's knocking about in teams and stuff.
Yeah. Right wing back for Cardiff, gets forward a lot. And so particularly because of how good defensively Cardiff are as well, there's sort of like, I guess, the expectation that there'll be plenty of clean sheet points, but then he could well add sort of attacking points going forward.
I think the best thing to do is just picture this: Perry and G just running down the right wing, floating across in, and Kiefer Moore getting this big, massive head on the end of it and scoring. That's all you're going to see all season.
So we've got G, possibly Pippa, De Silva. We've got this 4.0 Blackpool defender. We've got a couple of 4.5s. We ain't got anywhere near the premiums yet.
Yeah.
So actually, a lot of these guys we're speaking about, we're not going to end up going with, are we? Because the top boys, like I've got to have at least one of Townsend or Furlong. Is that agreed generally across the board? Possibly both. Yeah,
I've got both at the moment.
So have I at the moment.
I think they've got a mixed bag at the beginning, but I wouldn't even worry about the fixtures with West Brom. I think they're going to walk the league. I do.
Well, they've got Bournemouth and Sheffield United in the first 3, but then Blackburn actually away in game week 4 is quite tough as well, potentially. Then there's a bit of a run where they might just pick up a head of steam, actually. The way they play, I mean, you guys would have watched Barnsley a lot more than I did last year, but I mean, if they get with the increased quality, the levels that Ishmael was getting out of Barnsley, then they will pierce this league, won't they? Yeah. If they get that, and if the mentality's right amongst the players and they get on board.
Yeah.
Are you saying Barnsley got no quality, James?
I'm saying that West Brom have bought their best player in Alex Murray, mate.
Rob Pick would love that.
Well, no, but you know what I mean, right? They're coming down with Premier League players, whereas he took over a Barnsley team that was minutes away from getting relegated to League One. That's the sort of difference we're talking about. We know that many people think they were probably the best team to watch in the Championship last year, Barnsley. Yes, hello, Rob Pick, Ben Cameron. Get back in your chair. You'll be okay. So, who, other than the 2 West Brom boys, then, who do we really fancy from these
I fancy AJ at West Brom, though, still. When he was at Rotherham, I really wanted Stoke sign him because he was unbelievable every week, and he's a big threat on set pieces. And we've seen with Cardiff how effective set pieces are in the Championship. So like a Sean Morrison, a Jay in there. I'm not saying have all centre backs because we all love an attacking wing back, but I'm definitely considering a Jay, and my camera's going mental at the moment.
You crack on, Jay.
I'm just fighting, like literally clicking start video all the way through this.
Someone get him a new computer for Christmas.
Yeah, please.
Yourself, Angus? Who else you fancying?
So I've actually got at the moment Sean Morrison from Cardiff.
Okay. Again?
Centre back, but he's an absolute menace from set pieces.
Yeah.
He was in the top, I think, 7 point scorers for defenders last season as a centre back. So I think he's a big one. And I think the other thing, I mean, we're talking about West Brom. I'd look at the presumed starters of Anthony Robinson and Kenny Tete at Fulham. Robinson at 6.5, Tete at 6. I think Tete certainly seems to have the edge over, I guess it would be Cyrus Christie.
But Christie's been given a higher price, hasn't he? I'm not quite sure what the reasoning on that is.
I think it's because he did really well when he went on loan to Forest last season. So when they were pricing up the game,
I guess he could go out on loan back there, maybe, or they might buy him as well. Okay, that's fair enough.
How many times did I nearly get Christie, Angus? I just couldn't do it at that price.
And then Robinson, unless he leaves, which obviously there has been talk, in which case, if Robinson leaves, I'd still really like Joe Bryan at 6. But Robinson certainly seems like he's going to be the starter. And at 6.5, I mean, we saw his ability in the Premier League last season. So if he stays, I think he could be a good pick as well.
I'd like to throw Jack Stacey in as a name. 5.5 million at Bournemouth. I think that's pretty decent value. Again, he'll play right back or right wing back. I was speaking to Neil on that pod yesterday. He said, he's pretty nailed on that side.
Yeah.
Likes
and
to get forward.
Lloyd Kelly, Diego Rico's left now. So
they've got another left-sided young boy in from Leeds. I don't know if he's going to compete as yet. And Neil was of the thinking if they went for a back three, Kelly would probably be as part of the back three rather than a wing back. But I mean, Parker's just gone into the club. It's a little bit of an unknown at the moment. Whereas I think Stacey will definitely play on the flank. Kelly was a player who was really highly rated. They brought from Charlton and has suffered some bad injuries and stuff actually. But I feel like, it's picking from the top guys. I mean, I look at Jaden Bogle, Ender Stevens. George Baldock feels like the one that's probably avoidable because I know he's been quite heavily linked with Celtic, but I don't know if they can afford to buy him actually, which seems remarkable. But the Sheffield United wing-backs are quite interesting as well, actually. Bogle should do well at this level. Yeah,
Bogle was the one I was looking out for, and then I just wanted to make sure, essentially, that it wasn't going to be Baldock. But if it's Bogle, I really like him as well.
Yeah, Ender Stevens is a safer play there.
Yeah,
I think. But that's the thing, right? You could easily go with a back five here of something like Tete, Robinson, Furlong, Townsend, Stevens.
Yeah,
and it's your 30 to 30.5 million, or however much that. I think that's 30 exactly. I think roughly.
Yeah.
And it's not bad, is it?
No, and particularly with the half clean sheet points, you've got a higher floor for your defenders. So I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with investing heavily in that area.
Paddy McNair's a shout at 6 million at Middlesbrough as well. He'll play centre midfield on set pieces. He's one I'm going to keep an eye on. But if he was 5.5, maybe I'd be definitely in. 6 million is one of them.
Who was that? Sorry, Jamie, at Middlesbrough.
Paddy McNair.
Paddy McNair plays in midfield quite a bit sometimes as well, right?
Yeah, he'll play in the middle, he will.
Is he classified defender?
Yeah, 6 million defender, yeah. That's the only off-putting thing, he's 6 million. But set pieces.
Okay, midfielders. We've kind of identified that we've got Jed Wallace as premium.
Yeah.
Junior Stanislas has signed on again at Bournemouth at 9.5, but is injury prone.
Yeah,
I think we quite like Harry Wilson at 9.5 potentially, don't we, at Fulham? What else takes your fancy? Does Mowat now at West Brom become interesting at 8?
Less so for me now, I think.
Really?
Depending on his role, I think.
Yeah, because he was the man at Barnsley, so all the set pieces, everything. So whether he still retains that, even though he's going to play for the same manager, whether he still retains that playing with, better players remains to be seen.
Why would his role at West Brom be different to what it was at Barnsley when he's now going to work under the same manager?
I think because a lot of the style of football was a remit from Barnsley, not necessarily what Ishmael 100% might have wanted to do. So there's a slight unknown. The system looks like it's going to be 3-4-3, but whether they're going to play a different style to what was actually played at Barnsley, that's basically the biggest explanation of why it might be a bit different.
Bonucci ball incoming, guys. Who else do we fancy? One of you mentioned Mark Hondes, didn't you? I think at Bournemouth. Who's gone
Mark
now?
Hondes is one I like at Bournemouth.
It's 8 million.
Yeah, he can play either in the midfield or I know at Bournemouth a lot of the time he would end up as a wide attacker. So if he ends up a bit further up the pitch, that could be sort of a good one there.
Does he get the minutes though? That's my issue with him, I think. Obviously, we're expecting Danjuma go, but, you know, Brooks is still there. Stanislas is still there. So you think they'll take up the wide positions. Billion was unbelievable as a number 10, surprisingly, last year. Will he get the minutes you want at 8 million when you could have a Nick Powell? When Nick Powell's just the king, so.
No bias, Jay.
No bias at all. No, honestly, I'm not biased towards Stoke at all. We are utter shite. But Nick Powell, if he can stay fit this season, he's had near enough a full season fit last year. He'll get that move to the Premier League because he's too good. He is very, very good.
Yeah.
And at 8 million, he's a good option in this game as well.
At mid-price mids, who's standing out below that sort of 7s
slightly
to
cheaper,
6s?
but the one I was going to throw out as well is Matt Phillips, 7.5 at West Brom. He's, I think, started every pre-season game in the front three.
Yeah, that's what Gemma said yesterday. Yeah,
he's very championship
I've
proven
actually
as
got
well.
him in my team at the moment, so I should shout out Matt Phillips as well.
I don't quite get it. I mean, it's probably saying stylistically in it, and they're another one, right? They may well end up with a forward, something, you know, a loan from the Premier League, or again dip into. We're talking about players from sort of Peterborough and lower and that. But yeah, I was speaking to Gemma about it, and she wasn't quite sure on the reasoning. The fact that Grant, who obviously played up front at Huddersfield, is playing wide, but Phillips has gone through the middle at the moment. It's got to be something with the way they set up defensively off the ball in their pressing shape or something. It's got to be.
Phillips is a very good championship player as well. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's his energy in the middle where he, particularly if you're asking someone to press, Matt Phillips will just go and keep running.
Suffered a lot with injuries as well, though, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I know that goes for a lot of players, but I guess, that's difficult to make a case for Murray then at $1 million more than Phillips. If that's the kind of one at that price, you can punt it a bit more, can't you? At 7.5 and think, could he be OOP? I mean, it would be. This is where the research really helps here, guys. That's two different people now said, by the way, Matt Phillips is playing up front for West Brom. I bet they play another friendly before I release this podcast. And he's
he won't be.
He's playing a 6. He's playing Bonucci ball out from the back.
Grant will play through the middle now and look. I think Chair's a good option at QPR. 7.5 years. He was really good last year. He carries the ball really well. Just sits in that hole as a number 10. Billing, I've already mentioned. I was not expecting that when they started playing him as a number 10. He was one of them as, like, every week you say, should I get him? And you think, no, the run's going to be over now. He's had a lucky run. And he kept going. Who else is there?
While you're looking, Jay, I want to shout out a couple of names, if I may. And I must, while I'm doing it, give a shout out to a friend of the show, Whitebeard, who sent me, as he sent them to you as well, he sent me a shitload of stats on data of the game. I'll forward it to you, lads. It sounds like you already know anyway. But one really cheap one to shout out, Joe Ward at Peterborough.
Yeah, 4.5
million, 18 attacking returns last season, admittedly. 13 of them assists. And the other one I really like is another player coming up from League One from Hull, Malik Wilkes. 19 goals and 8 assists in League One last year. He's in for me. In fact, both of them are in at the moment.
Yeah, they're quite good. I mean, Ward, I was less familiar with. Malik Wilks, I had seen sort of even just on the League One sort of highlights or whatever. Normally, when I was watching the Championship highlights and forgot to turn it off, and Hull were almost always the first game, so saw quite a lot of Malik Wilks, and I was sort of very impressed by him. I think he could be a good option there.
I think I'm going to take a gamble because last year with Tony, I thought, very good for Peterborough in League One. I hadn't watched any, like Angus just said, the only League One I saw last season was when I forgot to turn the Quest off. So I might take a gamble on them because I wrote Tony off and look what he did. They're their talisman, aren't they? They're full of confidence. At that price, if you need to save money, why not go to someone like that instead of having someone who's shy from a bigger club just sitting on your bench?
Is it fair to say that sometimes teams jump up from League One into the Championship and start well?
Yeah.
Is that fair? That it can happen? They cause and they shock at the start?
Yeah. It's similar to the Premier League, and it's, I think,
yeah.
You get one team. Look at Hull all them years ago when that Giovanni was scoring screamers left, right, and centre every week. Blackpool and Holloway.
I remember the one at Arsenal more than the one at Tottenham.
Yeah, I think it's just how they adapt. Wickham came up with the mentality of, we shouldn't be here, but we're gonna just enjoy every moment. Rotherham are kind of a yo-yo club anyway. They're just kind of too good for League One, not very good in the Championship. And then Coventry, obviously returning after a long time.
Are they back at the Rico this year as well?
They've gone back to the Rico now, yeah.
Good. I'm really pleased.
So that'll be good. To be fair, it's a good atmosphere there. We played them in the Cup when Mark Hughes got sacked.
He got beat.
Yeah, they beat us in the FA Cup third round. In the middle of
Jamie,
January.
that's worse than you make it sound. You were Premier League and they were League Two, mate.
Yeah, we had Crouch, Charlie Adam, everyone played, and I made the mistake of in the middle of January going there in shorts, and I've never been so cold in my whole life.
I mean, that's on you, really. That's your own fault.
Hold on. Who's going to football in January in shorts, mate?
I did.
Anywhere.
A thin jacket, shorts on, because my mate drove for that one. And I'd never been to Coventry before that, the Rico. It's just like in the middle of a retail park, and it's quite high up. And I was divering through the whole game, just thinking, can this get any worse? And then it got better when Hughes got sacked. No, he got better then when he got sacked.
On promoted teams, there's a couple of forwards I've got in my draft at the moment who have both come up from League One, who I want to mention as well. Jerry Yates from Blackpool, 20 goals last year and 6 assists. I think it's worth a shout at 6 million. At the same price, though, more obvious, Johnson Clark-Harris of Peterborough, 31 goals. The question mark on him is and the reason I also think he's very, very interesting is, as Neil and Gemma both told us yesterday, that actually Bournemouth and West Brom are possibly both interested in him. He could. We're talking about, say, Matt Phillips and West Brom. This fella could go same route as kind of Tony did.
Yeah.
Go and be the main striker at West Brom at 6 million or something, and it suddenly opens up. But actually, Peterborough start with a couple of nice fixtures as well. Luton, Derby, Cardiff at home, Preston away. Is not the worst start. Hull, similarly, Preston, QPR, and Derby have only got about 6 fit players at the moment or something. It's not
Wayne
a bad
Rooney's
start
injured
either.
another one, so
Blackpool have got Coventry inside the first week. Blackpool starts quite difficult, actually. And I think if you were comparing Clark-Harris and Yates, you got to go with Clark-Harris at the moment, I think. But I've got them both sitting in there at the moment, actually, as punts.
Yeah, I mean, I had Clark-Harris for a while, and then I decided to invest more money in the forward area, so I took him out. But I think the potential with him is that sort of you've got that, even if he stays at Peterborough. I mean, I've gone a slightly different route with Peterborough. I've got Smodix, who's 5.5 midfielder from there, who's another part of their sort of really good attack. But I think a lot of the thought with Peterborough is that they could come up, and particularly with sort of the quite aggressive style they play, that they could do quite well. So I think having the attacking players from them, even if Clark-Harris doesn't move, could actually be a really good asset to have.
If they stay, I think I'd lean towards Clark-Harris more, because from what I've seen from him, he looks like he's just come out of prison. He reminds me of Troy Deeney.
Says the guy who went to Coventry in January in shorts. Fucking hell, mate.
No, God, he's got that physical stats. He looks scary. Like, you wouldn't, like, if he started on a night out, you'd just say, yeah, I'd have my missus, I'm going home in a taxi now. Like, you just stay away. I think he could be suited to the Championship, but I've got him, well, I had him in my initial drafts from the release day, but that was just to free funds up, so. But yeah, I think he'll be a good option. Yates, I'll be honest, I'd have to speak to Tangerine about. I don't know enough about him to even comment on him.
Okay. Anyone from Hull we've noticed stand out?
I can't remember the guy's name now. They had I'm pretty sure they had a good striker, but
I've picked up the guy Wilkes in midfield.
Yeah, 6.5.
6.5. He's interesting.
Yeah, I think the midfield from Hull, particularly, like that seems the better way to go. I think unfortunately for them, I think they've lost George Honeyman for a few weeks at the start of the season. It was sort of the attacking midfielder for them.
He scored 19 last year, Wilkes, in midfield.
Yeah,
I know it's in League One.
He's a right winger as well, isn't he?
I couldn't tell you, in all honesty, Jamie. I'm going off Whitebeard stats here.
Yeah, he plays from the right, I think. I don't know a lot about him myself. Danny McDonald from your Slack, he's coming to our group for the whole
Listen,
plan,
he'll message me privately and say bin James or keep James. That's
Yeah.
fine. But that's between us.
Yeah. Yeah, Hull. I don't know what to expect. Peterborough, I'm expecting them to play quite high pressing football, attacking, kind of will score one more than you. Blackpool, I think they're just going to be similar to Wickham, a lot of spirit in there, fans behind them. Is it Bloomfield Road it's still called?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hull.
Another cold place, I can assure you, Jamie.
Middle of December, I've been there.
Whenever you go, mate.
Yeah, it's horrible. On the temporary stand at the end of the season, we got promoted. It was horrible. Hull, I don't know what to expect from Hull, if I'm honest. They'll be quite interesting.
What's the thoughts on premium forwards, Jamie? Who are you fancying?
I'll put my neck on the line now and say Kiefer Moore will be the top point scorer in the game this year.
Wow, big.
He's I know a lot of people are going to Mitrovic, and I get it. I know why. I'm not. I'm going to go Kiefer Moore. 100%. He's going to cause havoc this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then I'll probably go to like an 8 million forward, something like that, and then a Clark Harris and put money in midfield, I think.
Do you think the combination, Angus, of Moore and Mitrovic is the sort of thing that would lean people towards a 5-2-3?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Mitrovic and Moore.
Okay.
And I've also got Lyndon Dykes from QPR, so I've invested quite heavily in the forward position. But I think a 5-2-3 or 4-3-3, particularly because you can get the cheaper options quite more easily in midfield, I think. You can find more sort of bang for your buck in the midfield area. Means you can invest more heavily in the forward areas and the defence. I mean, you could easily make a case for, assuming they stay, for all of the top four, sort of the real. I mean, I wouldn't make a case for Lucas Shaw. I think I owned him for 1 week last season, and that was bad enough. But the other four premiums, Solanke, Mitrovic, Armstrong and Moore.
You sound like a player saying he's bad enough because I missed nearly all of his goals last year.
No, because I started I didn't change strikers for the first 30 weeks or something. I started with Tony, Armstrong and Solanke. So I ended up quite well out of that. But I think the biggest question there, particularly with Solanke, is they seem to be looking for another forward that would concern me. Mitrovic seems to be back to being the number one from the sort of what I'm hearing pre-season from Fulham. But
could go.
Yeah.
If they get a big enough offer, he's not pushing to leave necessarily.
No.
But he's a sellable asset for them. And if an offer comes in that they like, he'll go.
Yeah, because he's spoken before that a big thing for him is how settled he is in the area. So that's partially why he'll never push for a move away, because he likes playing for the club and he's really settled with a young family in the area. So I think he's less likely to push, but if a bid comes in, they'll sell. And obviously Adam Armstrong heavily linked with a move to the Premier League, particularly I think Southampton.
Yeah, spot on. Likely Southampton if Danny Ings goes, we think.
So he's one I'd be reluctant to start with, because particularly with the transfer window still being open, you could reach any point and suddenly be without your premium striker.
Which makes Moore the safest, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although I think I was seeing a conversation earlier today that Kiefer Moore hasn't actually played a pre-season game yet, which would be slightly concerning there.
Or the least safest. It's worth saying, obviously, it's Carabao Cup this weekend as well. Yeah. So that's going to give some really nice clues to how a lot of these teams are going to set up. It obviously doesn't mean set in stone, but that's a real big potential clue in terms of fitness levels ahead of the season kickoff.
The only problem is not all the teams play before game week 1. We've got Fleetwood on Tuesday the 10th at home.
Okay, so not everyone this weekend.
No, there's some.
Why is that?
I have no idea. So we're playing Reading at home on the 7th and then Fleetwood at home on the 10th, which is quite annoying. So if you're looking at teams who are playing after, you're not going to get that bit of extra info on.
That's bizarre. So the round's being played over the course of 10 days, basically.
Yeah. I never understood why it's always before the season.
I can only think that's probably at the request of many of the clubs to bring it off a weekend night, to bring it forward to a weekend, to probably get higher attendances, which makes sense.
Yeah, possibly.
That's the only thing I can think.
Possibly.
Interesting. Thanks for pointing that out, Jay. I can't get over looking at McBurney at 9.5, McGoldrick at 9, Brewster 8.5, Sharp at 8, and Mousse at 8. Jesus, what the... I just think for those who are playing for the first time, psychologically, you're going to look at that and go, no.
Yeah.
But what did McGoldrick get? 10 goals in the Prem?
Yeah, but I think he's actually probably the safest one. Like, the problem there, obviously, is you've got 5 of them. It seems like McGoldrick is still the safest one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm not going near it. I don't think.
No.
I mean, McBurney I hate with a passion, so I couldn't go near him anyway. But
talk to me about Tyrese, Jamie, your boy up front.
Hopefully he's going to be fit.
This is Tyrese Campbell for people who don't know. At Stoke, 8 million.
He was brilliant before he got injured last year. He's probably our shining light other than Powell. I'm not going to start with him because I don't know if he's going to be fit. I was hoping he'd get minutes against Crewe on Tuesday, but he didn't. I think it sounds really daft, but if he stays fit, Stephen Fletcher would be a good option at 7. Do you know if you've don't laugh, Angus. We've already spoke about this. You even agreed with me, so don't laugh at me here. No, if you put all your money onto 2 forwards, if you've got, I don't know, a Solanke and a Kiefer Moore, and you need that cheaper one, and you can go up from Clark Harris. Fletcher is really, really good. He got quite a few assists last year, and I can see James is like trying not to laugh. But 7 million, he'd be a good shout, but there's better options. But yeah, go back to your question. I wouldn't go to Tyrese Campbell just yet.
A young player that might break out, someone like Sam Surridge at Bournemouth, for example, that we think might be going under the radar anywhere, not just necessarily in the forward positions. Someone you could see having a real breakout season.
Dolan at Blackburn. Yeah. I know he did come onto the scene a bit last year, but with Harvey Elliott there, he didn't start that many, did he, Angus? He did get some game time, though. He looks really good.
6 million midfielder.
Yeah. And with Harvey Elliott going back to Liverpool now, they haven't signed anybody yet, Blackburn haven't. I think they are waiting for the bid coming for Armstrong to free up the money. So it's kind of waiting for that domino effect from Southampton. But Dolan, I can't see why he wouldn't start on the right-hand side of that front three. I think it'd be Brereton, Diaz, Armstrong and Dolan. Yeah, Dolan will be decent. What about you, Angus?
I mean, I guess he's kind of broken out. I mean, he's now an international footballer. But I was actually going to mention Ben Brereton Diaz. He's still only 22.
Oh, wow, he is.
And I think, there's been lots of hopes around him, particularly, even when he was coming through at Forest, there were lots of sort of big hopes for him. And I think he could have a good season anyway, but if Armstrong does go, I could see Brereton easily just sliding into the central striker position. And he could have a big season there.
He'd be the main man. I think Spence at Middlesbrough as well. I think this will be the season he makes right wing back his own. He gets forward quite a lot. I did actually see him linked today with, those three: Everton, West Ham, and somebody else from the Premier League. So I think this would be his season. I'm just trying to think. I'm just going through the teams now, just try to pick people out.
Chris Willock, QPR. Slightly older, but I think he's sort of 23-ish. There were like massive hopes for him. Older brother of Joe. Massive hopes for him when he was coming through at Arsenal. Went off to Portugal, I think. Has come back and sort of built himself back up. He's starting attacker for QPR, so he could have played well down the stretch, so he could have quite a big season this year.
Another one, the lad at Forest who broke in the team last year, Myton, 6 million. Yeah. He looks a good player, so it'd be interested to see what he does under Houghton this year.
That's really useful, lads. A couple of questions before we finish up, and I want to do some quick fire stuff on a couple of clubs as well. How much attention do you pay to fixtures specifically for the game? Because I've created a fixture ticker, and actually the way it is with the Championship, it's quite difficult to find a run of greens. I look at a club like Reading, for example, who start with what I'd say is a difficult fixture at your place, Jamie, on opening day. And then I look at Preston at home, Bristol City at home, Coventry away, Huddersfield away, QPR at home, Peterborough at home, and look at that and think that is nearly as good as the 6 fixtures as you'll get in this league. But they've lost a couple of their best players. We think they're skint and probably can't get near the playoffs, possibly like they did last year. Do you still look at their players, or because we haven't mentioned Reading at all? Do we just look beyond it? Because they had some great assets last year.
Yeah, I think Elise was obviously really good because he was only 4.5, and that was a cheat code. Lucas Giles had a season out of nowhere. You know, you'd never have expected that in pre-season. I don't think any Reading fan would have said he's going to score that many goals a season. And they look like Liam Moore was there at the back once. I like Rinomota. He's a really good player. He's still there at the moment. But when I look at it now, Maite's injured. Swift is always injured. Will he stay fit for the season?
It was really high hopes for him.
Yes, he's such a good player. But I can't see him staying fit. And, you know, you look at the team beyond the starting 11 and it's just doesn't excite you really. So I literally haven't considered any of their players this season. Jory, possibly, but he doesn't score enough, does he?
Was he also at Liverpool as a kid?
Yeah, they signed him permanently last year, and that boy's got some good feet because he's really tall as well. I remember him
big lad
last season, the season before down at our place. First time I'd noticed him, and I was like, he's a player.
Did it bother you, Angus, when you're looking at fixtures? Is that important for you?
I do use them, but I often break it up into the 2 parts of the team almost. So like I'll look at good run of fixtures for a defender or good run of fixtures for a forward, which I tend to find easier in terms of looking for guys, like particularly with some of these clubs like Reading, where I look at that and I'm like, that's a really good run if I can find the right defender. But rather than looking at it for the team as a whole is the way I tend to use them. I
made the mistake of planning for fixtures last year, didn't I? It was halfway through the season. I was doing well. And then I tried to I can't remember who I bought in it. It was purely just for fixtures. And it was terrible. So I think my strategy this year is, I was listening to your podcast with, I don't know the names is it called The Black Box?
Oh, Mark and Az, yeah. You never heard of them. You're a strange guy, Jay, but carry on.
Yeah, no. I think I've heard of the Mark guy, but yeah, I've never listened to anything. So,
can I tell you something? Well, you know what they said at the end of the pod. They'll definitely be listening to this. You know that.
Oh shit. Well, I'm going to compliment them now anyway because
you obviously didn't make it to the end, Angus. Fucking hell.
Mark, I think he mentioned the biggest take that he learned on something was when a player's out of form, about taking them out, not bringing a player in, so focus on who's not doing well for you more than who you want to bring in. And I think I'm going to take that strategy into this season because I thought when he said that, I was like, he's got a point, actually. We do overthink things a lot where you do forget to do that.
Definitely. And captaincy, guys, do you have are kind of religious, I'm going with a forward, or is it again? Do you target weaker teams, or are you thinking, say like last year, Tony looked like he was going to score every week, just kind of stick on someone's form with that? What's your thoughts on that, Angus?
So captaincy tends to be much more sort of like reliable. Like I think last year captaincy was almost always on Tony or Buendia, occasionally on someone like Armstrong. But quite a bit of the time I would then use the vice captaincy, particularly because you get that 1.5 on a player that like I wanted to take a captaincy punt on but couldn't justify over, like Tony. So like I had at one point last season, I had a Sean Morrison vice captaincy that I think got me double digits. I had a Kiko Femenia vice captaincy. And so I think that sort of enables you to have a little bit more of a punt at times. If there's someone that you have a gut feel for but don't really want to captain, that vice captaincy does help you on that front. I think in general, it tends to be the forwards or the attacking midfielders more often than not.
And for yourself, Jay?
It was a lot of, for me, Pookie or Tony. So I'd kind of just look at it. I know it's going to be one of them. I know everybody else is having one of them. Who everybody else is leaning towards, I'd go for the other one normally. Because you get 1.5 for the vice anyway, so you didn't really lose out, did you, Angus, if you got it the wrong way round? And you can take punts like you did with Femini, because I think, a lot of people do it with Connor Roberts, and this camera is proper pissing me off.
I was just having a look, Jay, when you're playing Coventry. This is it January? December the 18th for the Rico. I'll tell you we'll do for you, mate. And this is sorry for the guys on the audio. This is far more for the people on YouTube. Get in touch with Sudge, right?
Yeah.
He's the one who pays the bills, right? We're gonna buy you first a pair of fucking trousers before you go to Coventry. And the second thing we're gonna do is buy you a webcam.
To be honest, it's gone off before, but it's never done it like this, has it, Angus?
No, this is new. This is entertaining.
Ridiculous.
This is the one where we're giving your podcast some exposure to other people, etc. You get, don't worry about it. It's fine. Right, before we finish up, let's do some quick predictions then. Okay. Quick fire. Angus, top goal scorer.
Lyndon Dykes.
Jay, I know your answer, but go on.
Kiefer Moore.
I'll stay with you, Jay. Who's winning this leg?
West Brom.
Angus.
West Brom.
Really, really confident on that.
Yeah.
Who to go up with him, Angus?
Bournemouth.
Yourself, Jay?
QPR.
Really? Go on. Just elaborate on that a bit, because we've not spoken about them much.
It is a bit of a left-sided shout, and Fulham, Bournemouth will be up there. Sheffield United maybe. QPR really good towards the end of last year. Wolverhampton did really well, but they brought back Charlie Austin, Sam Field. Johansson's gone back there. They've added depth to left back where they had Wallace, so McCallum's gone in there. Dunn from Burnley. They've added depth to that team where they didn't really have depth before. They've kept Chair, Dykes and Austin up front. I think they've got a really, really good team and a good manager as well. So I honestly do believe that they can go up second.
Okay. Well, that eliminates you from the next question of who's your dark horse for the playoffs. You predicted one to get promoted. Who would be yours for the playoffs, Angus? Someone people might not be talking about an outside bet.
Well, QPR was mine, so I've already tipped them in the first pod we did to finish in the playoffs. So I'll go for another one. I'll go for Millwall.
Millwall, another side we haven't spoken about too much. I know I spent Donna Boyle at the weekend at our event, and she's pretty hopeful actually for their season. Actually, yeah, I think there's a good feel about what's happening.
She does realise Gary Rowett's still manager, doesn't she?
Of course, Jamie. Yeah, absolutely. Angus, Derby to stay up? Yes or no?
No.
Jamie?
Absolutely not.
Who else will go down?
Blackpool. Coventry, if that's it. No, Hull.
And yourself, Angus?
Blackpool, and I'll say Coventry.
And one player definitely in your game week one team, Angus?
Definitely in Darnell Furlong.
Jamie?
It'd be boring if I said more, so I'll go the King, Nick Powell.
The King, Nick Powell, Stoke City. Brilliant. Jamie, tell everyone about your podcast and what's happening, mate.
So you can find us at EFL _fantasy on Twitter.
Hopefully, if the camera's working. Are you on YouTube yet?
Not yet.
Oh, it don't matter then.
No, not yet. Fingers crossed. By this time next week, we'll have everything sorted. FPL captain, Angus, you chatted him up at the weekend, didn't you, down in London? He's going to do us a template to get us started on the graphics, so really grateful to him for that. But yeah,
he is such a slut.
Yeah, he is.
I love him.
No, a really good guy. We really do appreciate him doing that for us, because it seems to be everyone's moving towards YouTube a lot now, and there's definitely a market out there for us as, you know, the only championship fantasy.
You've got a niche, Jay.
Podcast.
Do it.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. We are on Spotify and or iTunes, stuff like that. We have got 3 pods coming up over the next couple of days. They are the preview pods, so 8 teams on each. You'll get, if you've been, you know, looking for good advice tonight, you came to the wrong place with me and Angus, but hopefully on our pod, you know, we'll get the advice from the fans. And then I'll be on the surgery, your friends of surgery, next week sometime, I think it is. And we've also got last year's winner of Gaffr coming on our podcast just to chat about how he won the game, you know, what kind of decisions he made. And then we are bang into it on Friday night, the 6th. West Brom.
TL, you got loads going on.
Oh,
you
yeah.
You really are a Planet FPL knockoff, aren't you?
And I'm moving house as well at the same time.
Good luck, mate. It's stressful.
Absolutely relentless at the moment.
Where can everyone find you on Twitter, mate?
At EFL _fantasy.
Well remembered.
Yeah, just about. And what's yours, Angus? I forgot.
At Angus81.
That's it.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Give the guys a follow. I think just shout out as well. You'll be able to confirm this, guys. But I'm pretty sure our friends on Takeover Week, Man on FPL, and the Season Keepers are both doing a little bit of Gaffer this week as well. Obviously, yours is fully concentrated on it, but I believe they're covering the game as well. Is there anyone else you know that's covering the game?
Man on or they do a bit. I don't know who the Season Keepers are.
You are really slagging some people off tonight, aren't you, mate?
No, I'm not slagging them off. I literally didn't really play FPL. I don't like the FPL community. There's some of the shit I've seen today. It's just like they need to get a life.
Jay, I'm trying to get you some followers.
It's coming for everyone today.
No, it's God. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it winds me up. Most of the people, I have met some good people in the FPL community. Who else does it? Joel and Kyle.
We mentioned Joel, who finished second last year, and Kyle at Stoke Gaffer. They're doing some YouTube videos, some quite long YouTube videos called Gaffer Tapes. So they'd be the other main thing to check out.
I thought we got rid of the Gaffer Tapes, but anyway. All right, give all them people a follow. Good stuff, guys. That's the end of our EFL week. Hope you enjoyed it. Something a little bit different. Get involved in Gaffr Fantasy. Honestly, it's a really fun and engaging game to play. And the one thing I know, Jay, what you're saying about Twitter, but it seems like in the Gaffr community, everyone's quite helpful for people who need some advice. Why are you rolling your eyes?
I'm not. No, the Gaffr community is really good, to be fair. We do. It's not like there's any big accounts or anything like that. We all encourage each other. We want to see each other in the top 10. You
can obviously point people in the right direction if people need that advice on a Millwall player or Middlesbrough player who's the kind of best person to seek out. There's a little world of championship fan supporters that exist in the FPL and Gaffer community. 100%. Obviously, next week for us, Correspondent Week starts Monday. With the champion, of course, not just of the Premier League, but of course of the fucking Correspondent FPL Mini League. Again, our Manchester City Correspondent FPL Pringle will be the first to be out roughly 10 a.m. on Monday morning. Will be the first of 20 podcasts over the 7 days between Monday the 2nd of August and Sunday, August the 8th. There'll be 3 pods Monday to Saturday and an extra 2 on Sunday. That's 1 each with each of our Premier League correspondents focusing on their club, best FPL assets, how they're feeling about the season before we get underway. Thanks again to Jamie and to Angus. Good luck to everybody playing Gaffer this season. Hope to hear from many of you on Monday and join us for Correspondent Week. Cue music, please, man, show.